I'm not hearing very well. I'm going to have to do something here.
Okay.
You're very much breaking up.
Okay. So calling to order the Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting at 7:04 on May 27th. The meeting is being recorded. This is a meeting via Zoom, given our continuing pandemic situation and the COVID-19 situation and the agreements and permissions that have been allowed by the governor to connect and do these kind of meetings not in person. So we have a quorum present, plus Ken Comia, our PVPC consultant, and we might have one, maybe two others joining us, but I think we can go ahead with this. I don't see anybody else hanging out on the waiting list here that wants to join us, so I assume we don't have any public comments. It's funny, nobody's interested in our meetings. I can't figure that out. Sucks.
Wait till you put the report on, then
Yeah,
people
right.
will be interested.
Then we'll have all sorts of comments, right? Yeah. Well, I shouldn't complain. I was telling Cindy, well, Francine knows, our select board meeting went last night till 11:30, so I was like, it was
5.5 hours.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh,
And I had the assessors meeting before that too, so I was like, oh, I'm so tired of Zoom, I can't tell you. But anyway, so let's go ahead with our usual business, basically our continuing business here. We have some minutes from the last meeting, which if I can just pull up for a second and try to share those. Let's see if I can find them here. Okay, let's share those and just take a look and see if anybody has any comments about the meetings. They were pretty short and simple. If people would just take a glance, and then we'll just see if we can have a motion to approve them.
Okay.
That was basically all there was.
Okay, so move.
Okay, can I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, and let's do a roll call vote. I guess we have to do that.
Okay. Tishman, aye.
That's 9.
Palmer.
Aye.
Taylor, I.
Fowles, aye. Okay, unanimously approved. Okay, perfect. Good. So obviously we're going to go back and work on our survey, and I know I had sent you a cleaner draft after the last meeting, and since then there's still some tweaks I think we can do. I think we can still consolidate some things that seem to be a bit redundant. And I know in the meantime the open space update plan people have been meeting and talking about how to not necessarily duplicate efforts, but to make sure that our survey might include some of the things that they've been looking at that they think are important to have in there too. So I'll look forward to both Ken and Cindy and Francine. I think you're on that committee too. If you have some things to say when we get to that. But what I would like to do today is kind of swap the order of our meeting. We've been doing a good job going through the questions, and we still will do that and need to do that. But as a result, by the time we get to the end, we never have time to really talk about how we want to administer this thing. And I think it's more important right now to talk about, we've got this little animal that we've created here that is getting closer and closer to final, but how do we actually decide that we can actually administer this? What's our timing on this, etc. So I'd like to have the first part of the meeting at least focus on that and see if we can come up with some good ideas. I'm not one who's ever administered a survey, so I really rely on anybody else who's done that to tell us how this works. And here comes Jim, just a second.
But all of this has to be gathered in enough time so that Ken can complete the report by June 30th. Am I right?
What? No. June 30th? No, December 30th.
December 30th, I'm sorry.
Hi, Jim.
Okay.
Glad you could join us. We just went through the minutes and approved those from the last meeting. And instead of jumping right into the survey, Jim, we just started to talk about how we want to try and administer the survey so that we have enough time tonight to talk about that, because we've never quite gotten to that point, or it's been very late in the meeting to start talking about it. We're all half asleep. So I thought we'd start the meeting tonight talking about what we have to think about administering the survey and ideas that we have to do that. I think so far all we've talked about is doing both an electronic survey and then some sort of a paper copy, so doing both methods. But I guess I'm open for some brainstorming and some ideas about how we do this and how soon we think we can get it out. I think we've got probably another run through tonight on the questions, but most I think are pretty good. I like the grouping better in terms of categories. There's still a little bit of redundancy, and I think we can manage that. And Ken has assured me that even though right now it's still 4 pages, it's about 25-ish questions, that there's a way to format this to make it maybe not quite as unmanageable as 4 pages, but I'll leave that to the experts because I'm definitely not one of those. So would anybody like to just talk about, I don't know, you start out a little bit with just how you have seen these electronic surveys be done. I know you've got some work to do to put it into shape, but give us a clue how this all works, basically, I guess.
Sure. So normally, if I were to set up an electronic survey, it's something that you probably have filled out in time, before, where you would have a link, usually a SurveyMonkey link, and you would follow through the questions. Obviously, there is a, I would need to assemble the survey based on the way we have it laid out in text form, so that if you're prompting with if you're answering a no and it's requiring a response, that, you'll be able to fill out that response electronically.
Right.
So normally, and through all my survey making experiences, it has been electronic. With that said, we do print out paper copies, basically what we have here, and what the committee has put together. And in the past, we've placed those in public buildings or community businesses, with the opportunity for someone in town or the consultant to pick them up, and just maybe call wherever that business at, hey, have you received any surveys, based on that. And after we close the electronic component, normally it would be a manual input of those surveys into the system, just to capture that data. I know the board or the committee has been looking at mailings. From experience, I haven't worked with any communities that have done a mailing of an entire survey per se. The way that the community got the word out were either through a town meeting that usually had like a link on a handout explaining the survey, and that would allow the person receiving that document to, if they had the time and the interest, to go to that website and fill out the survey still electronically.
Right.
At the same time, also providing hard copies at a town meeting. Mind you, the town meeting is going to look a lot different this year, and unsure of how it's going to look. We have to navigate that. I think the committee has established that there is going to be a cost should the committee really want to explore and identify and use the addresses that maybe the town clerk has through your census collecting, to send out to households. There's a cost and a time component, I think, with that. Obviously, electronic, for those that have the means, is you're going to be able to capture and get that interest right away.
Right.
It's getting the word out. That's always the challenge.
Right.
And I think both Cindy and Francine, as they've went through the survey process in the open space plan, I'm sure that they have their own perspective with regards to the town and how residents, were either open or had questions about that survey process.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think obviously we're going to, for this survey, have at least an electronic version because that's important to have, and that does create the ability to collect data a lot easier. And then maybe between the committee and myself, we could figure out a way to at least provide hard copies to those hard to reach communities. If not, figuring out a way to get the word out of the survey.
Couple quick ones that you just said. I just wanted to clarify. You mentioned like, I guess, getting the hard copies off to various businesses or places like that in town. So they would just basically be a handoff point, but not necessarily a return point, or?
So it ended up being a handoff point for businesses, but the return place would be either town hall or the police department, your municipal buildings, really.
Okay.
So that would be where town people would return it, if not give it to committee members like yourself, if they knew you, and or mailed it to town. And, you know, obviously you're going to provide an address on a hard copy.
Right. We'd have to see whether we could set up some sort of a drop box or something.
Right.
Maybe at town hall. I mean, right now the box that is there is really reserved more or less for the tax collector people.
Sure.
We didn't even use it for the election, the state election. So it's kind of limited in that regard. Okay, so that's a thought. And then, so then any of the surveys that are done on paper, you've got to input all that data manually. Is that what?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
So just a little bit of background from what I remember for the data collection on the open space and recreation plan update, which just occurred in November of last year. Number one, there was a very concerted effort to make sure seniors had an opportunity to contribute. And I believe the Council of Aging Board made really strong effort to get a lot of seniors involved while they were there at the Council on Aging. Well, guess what? They're not going to be there now. So that's going to be very tough to make sure we get seniors the way they came in before. Secondly, there was this idea that a link or at least information was sent to the Norris School to try to capture the input from school-age children and their families. A question of whether that actually occurred, I don't have an answer. I don't know. I think that was there was concern that we didn't really get the young people's or the young families' input. I just plain don't know the answer. Whether it even went into the Norris School newsletter. There is an online website for Norris School. So to me, if we were going to do it this way, we would, need a confirmation that it actually got posted for Norris School or Hampshire Regional High School. Just those are thoughts on that. Yeah. Thirdly, the actual return on this survey was in the case of there were hundreds. There were not thousands. I mean, we have over 6,000 residents and 2,500 households. And I will say the person from PVPC, whose name is Emily, was quite satisfied with the return. She felt that was adequate, which is great. I think we need to manage our own expectations on this. We need to think about this. What expectations do we have on the return? Yeah. If we are thinking we want to get 800 or 1,000 or 1,500, maybe not. Yeah. But we want representation, don't we? We want a broad representation.
What kind of is a normal percentage of return? I mean, just on average. I mean,
I don't know. Ken, what is a normal percentage?
I think anywhere between 5 and 10% is considered good.
Really?
Wow.
So,
but yeah, that's
low
considered
bar.
Really good because that probably would capture a good chunk of the various populations in town. Normally, the surveys that I've participated in administering have usually had a return rate of between 1% and 2%. So, I mean, we did a master plan for a town in Eastern Mass, and the town had 1,200 people and 100 submitted something. So not terrible, but
Hmm.
I mean, I think you do have to
Yeah.
temper your expectation with regards to a survey.
So Tim, I'm not a statistician, but I think for surveys, there's a target for what, when you reach a certain amount, that's considered statistically representative.
Mhm.
So there's the response rate you may get, but then there's the statistical significance rate. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on what would be considered statistically significant.
I would probably have to talk to the data people to figure out, whether the data collection was statistically significant. It requires me to, it's one of those things that when I was in planning school, I normally had the analysis class was difficult for me because I'm not a statistician, but yeah, we do have data people on our staff that would assist with that, and more than likely some of the rigmarole of the input of data, I probably will seek someone else to input it within PVPC so that we can spend more time on the plan itself.
I mean, speaking of time, I mean, we could probably talk about this for a long time, but really the goal was to get us, I mean, if we could get 90%, who cares if we broke records? That would be tremendous. So probably, I liked Cindy's ideas. I'm wondering if we could also, and maybe I missed this, Cindy, but include like when there's town meetings, they put it on the marquee in front of town hall and in front of across from where we used to be. The way we can push it that way to raise awareness. You have a lot of commuters, well, less so now, but
Yeah.
people who are out and about might see those and be reminded to respond.
Yep. Yep. You're muted, Cindy.
Yep.
You're muted, Francine.
Thanks. Am I back on? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We lost your visual.
Well, just as well. You don't have to look at my face. But I'm with Jim very strongly that advertising is critical. No matter what we do, we take full advantage of every bit of free advertising that we can get to get people involved, including the email that Robert Floyd puts together, and also the marquees. There's 2 of them in town, one in front of the town hall and one at the corner of what we call the Trading Post Corner. I don't know where else we could do it, whether we could do it in these various newsletters. There's the Council on Aging newsletter. There's the library newsletter. I think there's a Norris School newsletter.
Yes. Yeah.
Hampshire Regional newsletter, just to do everything we can. Now, that's what I think we did with Open Space and Recreation Plan. But back to Ken's point, we need to make sure we don't have an expectation to get a 90% return, because unless we're going to go door to door, knock on the doors, and be census taker type people, which maybe isn't a good idea.
Not at this time.
Not right now, for a multitude of reasons. We don't have capacity, for one thing. Then I don't think we should expect 90%. If we get 5 to 10%, what did you rate? Oh, 5%. If we get 5%, we're going to be golden. Am I right, Ken? I mean, is that where we're?
That would be usually is a marker of a good rate of return. And obviously with any sort of data collection, you may, there was an instance where, we were excited about a 5% rate of return, but the population that was answering was all homogeneous. So it really didn't give you anything but a confirmation of what the majority of population, what their concerns were or whatnot. So I guess we hope for the best, but again, it's to find those avenues to get the word out. I think you've identified the typical methods to do that. I think obviously you'd also maybe want to, create something for Easthampton Media and to put on your.
I was just gonna say.
And maybe at select board meetings or other council or board meetings, you know, as having part of those as announcements.
Yeah.
I think there is the way to get the word out. We obviously can, I think you can also start posting things. We can like make a poster and we can post it around town with a, you know, a quick link or a QR code with people with smartphones would be able to just scan that, you know, little code
Nice.
thing, and it would take it to the web, the Survey Monkey or the online
idea.
survey.
It's a good idea. So you could put something at the transfer station. There's a lot of people go through there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Cindy mentioned the library, the senior center, annual town meeting. I mean, any place where, any time that we think people will be coming together, which is rare. I like the idea of Easthampton Media.
Yeah. I think a lot of those we could certainly put in a link, like in the newsletter. I mean, you know, a little description and a link to it, so that would get the electronic
Yes.
part. But again, I don't think we're going to have a lot of people back at the senior center or anybody. I mean, not anytime soon, anyway. But some ideas of a poster. That's maybe an interesting idea. We could do something at the bank, for example, as well. The transfer station, who's you know.
And I like the idea too of having the codes. You can just hold up your phone to it and it downloads that's a great idea.
Okay, so it could be both the link and the QR code as well.
So let me add something. I was on the library trustees board there for a while, and we were always trying to advertise the various library events. There's a list, and I could probably get a copy of it, of various town businesses where we used to make sure something got put, you know what I mean? Like, now some of them aren't even open right now, let's be clear about that. But, you know, slowly we're seeing things opening. So I could find that list. We could get a poster made. I know somebody who's very good at making posters, and she did this for the library. Just throw that out as a possibility. That we could approach her, or one of us, I guess, not me. And I love the idea of the posters. So I'm writing down all these ideas, the various marquees, posters around town, newsletters, board meetings, committee meetings, emails, of course, Facebook. We didn't write that. We didn't say that. Facebook, transfer station, town meeting, Easthampton Media. And Chris, do you want to give an update about where the town meeting stands right now?
Well, yeah, as of last night, I mean, we were originally going to be having the town meeting on June 9th with town elections on June 23rd. However, that's not a real reality because it's around the corner. So last night at select board, it was decided to postpone that to a date to be determined in early August. We kind of left it open, but I mean, maybe it could sneak back into the end of July at the earliest, but I think Francine, right? We left it open without a specific date yet, trying to figure out how much is opening up, you know, waiting on some other news from the governor about when things can be more open. And we talked about last night, we're not ready to have the public come back to town hall, but we were hoping that the employees who have been pretty much working, you know, telecommuting or teleworking rather, we set a date, I believe, of June 8th for them to return to work, assuming they could and would, that they would return to town hall with all the proper precautions in place, but we were not yet ready to open up town hall to the public. So suffice it to say, a town meeting, we've at least got a month, 6 weeks anyway, to play with that. I did send a note, just a double check to Robert Floyd, just to ask, because I believe he did tell us at one point, or I've heard it, that we could also do a handout at town meeting, but you've got to get it to the town clerk, I think 10 days ahead of time, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 2 days. It's 2 days ahead of time. And I think he said it had to be outside of town meeting. It had to be like before the meeting.
Like in the hallway?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay, because I mean, again, and this will be a whole challenge in terms of how we even run town meeting and where we do it. I mean, that was part of the discussion last night of, you know, not terribly excited about doing it at the school. There was talk about doing it in Conant Park, you know, just trying to figure out how we can have any spacing. And
it depends on what the logistical guidelines are at that point in time.
Right, yeah, exactly. But I know there normally at town meeting, there are things on the, as you check in, there's normally handouts that you can take right then and there. So I would think, you know, I mean, if we were handing out the survey itself, that would be one opportunity, I suppose. Otherwise, it could be just a little blurb with, again, the link to the website and the QR code on it. But I mean, that would be an occasion to hand out a hard copy, I would think, where we could, you know, get a fair number of people.
And at this next town meeting, the annual town meeting is when they hand out the annual report from the prior year, fiscal year 19.
True.
So, I mean, we could have it alongside that.
Maybe, yeah. So that's a possibility. So I think in terms of the, you know, the handouts, I mean, I like Ken's idea too of, you know, selecting certain businesses where we, you know, they'd be willing to have it, you know, that are opening up, they'd be willing to have, you know, 20 hard copies or something available, and let people take them and let us know how that's going. But I would think, you know, there's ways to get that out there. What are we thinking about in terms of timing? I'm given this with the town meeting now, for putting it out and getting returns and compiling data and coming up with some final products. We definitely have the end of December as our date. So would we want to get some of the electronic versions out earlier, or wait and kind of put everything out all at once?
I think it's always helpful to get the electronic versions earlier.
Okay.
I think, obviously, you know, I think the way that I would probably proceed with plan writing would be to, at least for this instance, maybe identify any trends if there were any. And really, it probably, you know, you're addressing within the narrative of the document some of the, you know, the sentiment regarding some of the issues that you're exploring here. I think that getting the or opening up a online survey also will, if you can capture the attention of those that have the ability to do it early, and then, you know, maybe at town meeting say, okay, we have these hard copies, or the hard copies are, and we'll also, I think you can also advertise that they are available outside of the town meeting, or prior to the town meeting, and, you know, have the ability to collect them,
Right.
and just continue that process. Depending on when you have town meeting, maybe you do like a last call, or you say, if you haven't yet filled out this survey, either online or a hard copy that you found elsewhere in town, you know, take this time and within the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
fill out the survey and submit it.
Yeah. So I guess that would be my point, that maybe by the end of August, we would have collected all the surveys. I mean, call that the end.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, because when I was working with the town on their survey, we did have a process of, we had a 3-month, 2.5, 3-month period of collecting both online and hard copies.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So if the board, if the committee, you know, can finalize a survey within these next 2 or 3 meetings,
Yeah. Easily, yeah. We need to.
then we, you know, come up and put the online version together and figure out what our process of communicating the survey that we want to, you know, to disseminate within the last few weeks of June, and get July and August for, you know, the survey to be open.
Yeah. Yeah. If we could get it out maybe toward the, you know, the last, whatever, the 3rd week of June or something, that might be a great goal. I don't know. What's anybody think about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of when the next tax bill goes out, and not that you could put the survey in the tax bill, but could we put a note in with the information about the link, or where to, you know, or pick up a paper copy in town hall, something like that.
Yeah, I think
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great idea. I think that in the past, when I was working as a town planner, we were doing a planning study, and we put we didn't put the an entire survey in there, but we did put like a half sheet or some foldable single sheet. And, you know, the department that was responsible for getting those out, were fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how town government is on your end, if,
Yeah.
you know, the people preparing those,
We'll have to ask about that. I mean, normally the tax bills are due in August, but we've had a delay already, right? So.
Right, because, yeah, the June ones are not due now until July,
Right.
which means it's going to be pushed back. But maybe the bills will go out and they'll get the information that way
That's true. I mean, the
on
bills.
time. And that doesn't mean, it means the survey is due, your taxes may not be due.
Right, yeah. No, it's true. Maybe the tax bill would still go out as it
Yeah.
normally does, even though the deadline for paying taxes could maybe
Right.
be extended. Okay, we have to figure that. So what we need to do is have, you know, some paragraph of explanation about what this survey is all about and why we're doing it anyway, right? And
right.
and whether that's, you know, at the beginning of, you know, taking up part of that first page of the survey, or a separate, I don't know, separate half page or something. I guess we can figure that out in terms of, we've got what was written the last time, and maybe we can just tweak that and not have to start from scratch on that narrative about, you know, why the survey in the first place.
Right.
What else was I was just thinking about something and I just lost it.
I don't know, whatever the message is, we have to make it sound to people that this is important to you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we really need to see if we can gin up some excitement here. I don't know if we can, but we need to have some level of interest. I would hope that would be good on that. Yeah. Gosh, I'm thinking something else here. Thinking out what I was thinking about, but anybody have any other thoughts? I mean, I think these are all great ideas. The marquees, I mean, one of those is the Mothers Club and the other is the Lions Club. So I can
Right.
easily.
No, there's three. There's a Lions Club, that I missed one. Lions Club, Mothers Club, and Town Marquee.
Oh yeah, right.
There's three.
So, I mean, there, you know, those can easily, you know, we can contact the right people and get that done. I think that's not, you know, well, it's not impossible. We can certainly make that contact. I think the reality is, you know, how shall we get this out in hard copy? I mean, will people be willing to pick it up? Are people still being cautious about handling paper? I mean, I don't know. It varies, I think, from people to people, person to person.
Yeah.
But hopefully in the next month or so, that will be a little bit less worrisome.
Well, you know, if I love Francine's idea of whether or not we can capture the opportunity to put a very brief little half sheet in with the tax bill. It may not work. It may not be allowed, you know,
Well,
but
no, they've allowed other inserts.
oh, okay.
I just don't, I know let me check on it, because I know one was done with the Friends of the COA,
Okay.
and I believe we paid a portion of the postage or something, but we'll have to check.
All right.
So one of the options for the person that doesn't like the idea of anything electronic and really doesn't want to, you know, fill out something, maybe a third option would be, would you like a personal phone call to have someone, you know, just talk with you and you know, like we do the old-fashioned way? I don't know. Is that something anybody would want? People pretty much reject phone calls, but maybe if we're scheduled, they wouldn't mind.
And just read the questions and fill them out for them as they go. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Francine's laughing. What do you think, Francine? Dumb idea?
I'm just thinking how this could get away from you. They would be very long conversations.
You know, I don't talk very much. I don't think it would be me.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd be willing to do that because I was ready to do a door-to-door to pass this out. You understand?
With this, all these ideas, and I think these are great ideas. Does this mean that we probably would avoid doing a mailing then? Is that what we're saying? So
That's what I'm hearing.
not deal with Lucy and the 2,500 households, but to really try to do it this way. Is that,
Right.
So-
The return on your mailing is so minimal, I would think.
yeah. Well, and I think the cost too, again, even if we could get this down a little bit, we're still talking easily 3 pages, plus if we had to do a return envelope and whatever else to be sure that we got it. It's
Because
not,
I'm just thinking too, like, you know, receiving things from my town, from City Hall, I think I had to fill out a census, right? It didn't have a return envelope with a stamp. I had to put a stamp, or
Yeah.
I had to go, and I mean, I just delivered it to town.
Yeah.
But normally, I don't think that would be the case. And this would,
yeah.
if you know, the committee wanted it, that this would be an instance where we were also paying for return postage.
Yeah, that's true. Because I think even our tax bills, frankly, they don't put a return envelope in there, do they? Right. I don't think so. No. Yeah. So that's
No.
true. Okay. Well, that would be one less hassle anyway. But that would
I
save.
think I'm hearing what Jim said. The return on mailings are usually not a cost-effective return. And given that we have all these other options, and I'm sort of calling back to how it was done with the open space and recreation plan survey, I don't think a general mailing was even a consideration. So there must be some rationale for that. So I'm actually leaning away from that. Don't forget, Lucy told us she has a mailing list with approximately 2,500 households on it. Many of them are returned because people have moved, people are not there. So therefore, there's people that are missed, and there's a return, and she's not had an opportunity to update that list.
Yeah, so her database is not up to date anyway, right? Okay, good point. Now, one thing I think I want to do is if we could get through, whenever we get to our final draft of the questions, whether it's tonight or the next meeting, I think I probably need to show it through to the select board folks ahead of time.
And when are you gonna do the dishes?
Would that be anybody's thought that I run this and we have it as an item at select board for them to look at and just comment on, given that they had input and wanted to be sure that we were including some of their thoughts. I feel like we need to go back to maybe both planning and select board with the finalist version of our survey. What do you all think?
They were I think those two were the major groups identified in the master plan in terms of responsibility. So I would think that would be a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not to have them, discuss it, and I don't want to spend time wordsmithing with them. I'd like to have like, here it is, and we're just out of courtesy showing you, what we've come up with, and talk about the plans for getting it out.
Yes.
But not to get into more debate over questions, unless there's something that is really some important question that we've obviously missed. I mean, I guess I would entertain that, but
Right, they may have some broad input, but not to micromanage it.
yeah.
Right.
So here's my thought on this. As a representative from the planning board, we're faced with 2 other really major things right now, which is the update of our zoning bylaws, which has gone on for a couple of years now, and another important bylaw, which is the stormwater coding bylaw draft that's been going on for several months, and the usual business. I would propose, as specific to the planning board, that you allow me to go back to them, remind them that this is an ongoing process, invite them to tell me whether they want to see the draft or not.
Okay.
And if they say, no, that's fine, you go forward, then I'll take that. If they say yes, and then I'll be prepared to provide the draft.
Okay.
That's specific to the planning board. How does that sound?
Fine.
Sounds fair to me. I mean, I think we shouldn't avoid them, because I mean, it was really through them that we were able to get the grant in the first place. So we need to be sure that we're not
Okay.
bypassing them.
It's more like an awareness thing. Make them aware that this is what we're doing and this is what it is.
I would agree. I think that if you were to provide, like when I would notify my planning board and have announcements, let's say, when I was town planner, I would provide the planning board with their review material for the week, for the upcoming planning board meeting, which also would include any, abutter notifications from the towns next door that were, doing public hearings and whatnot. So I could see that this type of information could be just something shared with the planning board, invite them to comment. But I don't think that it really should require, anything additional.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. And I'd say pretty much the same for the select board too. I mean, I would see that as in our basically our packet for the meeting, and people will have a chance to read it, and it's on the agenda, and we can talk about it a bit, but not go through it question by question by question by any means.
Right.
Would not be my desire for sure. Now, having said that, our next select board meetings are June 9th and June 23rd. So maybe we can set a goal of getting it all ready for June 23rd. That would be a nice idea.
That's a good goal.
Get it out soon thereafter.
The next planning board meeting is June 3rd. And then the next one would be 2 weeks after that. I know we have a couple big things coming up. I believe we have a hearing. I haven't actually seen it on the agenda, but I think we have a hearing coming up. So I'm going to actually bring it up. I'm going to email Paul Deman tonight and ask him to put it on the agenda for June 3rd, just so that I can speak about this. If they want to see a final draft, that'll be later, towards June 23rd. And
Okay. All right.
that's how I'd like to do it. Okay.
However you want to handle that committee, that's fine. I'm good with it. So, okay. Any other thoughts there? Brittany, Christina, anybody with
I think it sounds good.
yeah, are we heading in the right direction? Are we
So when would be the drop dead date that you would have to have all of the returns in so that they could start to look at the data that you need to develop your report?
I would probably say the middle of September.
Don't
That's,
you want it earlier?
well, I mean, understanding that the dates that you've posed for town meeting and every community, and I'm trying to manage also the other communities that I'm working with and having to deal with their town meetings and zoning bylaws that I'm working on with them. I think if you were to set maybe the day that the survey period closed, maybe the end of August, and that way, it gives us a solid 3 months.
Labor Day weekend, I would think would be kind
Right, that's
cut off time.
that's a good time.
or whatever that's worth, but it just seems like it would be a normal thing. So that would be like the 6th or the 7th of September. So
Yeah, it's basically the summer to complete this.
really, such as it is. Yeah, okay, well, that's good. I think that gives us at least some ideas about how to go forward. And what I may ask is, help in when we get ready to actually contact some of these places and be sure that we can, either leave these surveys somewhere or whatever we need to do. So we'll get to that later on here. Okay, so anything else about administration on this? Yeah, Cindy?
Can I just clarify for the minutes what we've agreed to? So are we saying that we're completing our survey prep by what, June 23rd? Is that what I heard? When
Yeah.
is the final day? Okay, survey prep will be done. So we'll get the final survey done by June 23rd.
Yes.
And then we're going to have the drop dead date for the total collection be September 7th. And those are the two dates I just want to be clear about. Is this what we're all agreeing to?
Does the select board need more time for your agenda packets? When does that usually go to select board members?
No, we get it 3 or 4 days ahead of the meeting. So
Okay.
yeah, and updates as soon as it, if there's something else at the last minute, it gets thrown in there too. So
Okay.
we'd be okay, I think. So this would allow us to still, if we needed to, we'll jump to the survey in a minute, but if we needed to, we would still have time to schedule 2 more meetings if we had to before the select board meeting on the 23rd. So I think that gives us enough time. That's why I'd really like to sort of see if we can chomp down on the final questions and then let Ken go do his magic of rearranging it to formatting it, however
Yeah.
it can happen electronically. At some point in time, we just have to, just call halt to the questions and just say, this is it. This is good enough. It's the best we can do, kind of thing. So, all right.
I'd like to just
Christina, yeah.
jump in and ask, I'm thinking of seniors again, or people who might want a paper survey. Would it be a good idea just to put a phone number, like your phone number, Chris, include it in case, so that someone could call and request that a paper copy be mailed to them or delivered to them?
Sure. That's a good idea. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If we can keep track of anyone. We can put some language either on the poster or a handout if there's a request for mailed versions.
Yeah.
And Chris, if you were reluctant to use your own personal phone number, I believe Lucy would agree to have the call come into the town clerk's office. She struck me as agreeable to be supportive of the process when I talked to her.
Okay. I think that's fine. My only hesitation is we're probably going to be running into town elections around that time, and I know she's going to be
swamped.
Okay.
up to her ears
Okay.
and trying to figure
Town
out
meeting.
how to manage that one. So I'm just a little reluctant from that point of view. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
Yeah, the seniors, they send out a newsletter every month to about 1,100 people, houses.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking this would add to the postage because then it would have to be hand folded, and the fact that people can't congregate to do this kind of work, and we don't know when that's going to loosen up. I don't know how we'd get it out the door.
Well, I mean, we could maybe have, a special time, I don't know, a couple of days or something where one of us could be there outside the senior center handing them out, just saying, 10 to 12, they're going to be available.
We can work something out.
Something.
Like
I mean,
that.
we can figure out something, I think, to hand them out, at different locations to do that maybe. So yeah, I think we've got a little bit more brainstorming on that part. Before we leave this, would anybody want to take a stab at doing the sort of the intro to why we're doing the survey and or the poster idea?
I'm happy to help with that. Let people contribute. I'll do a draft.
A draft or something?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, well then let's, if you don't mind, we're gonna jump back to our magical survey, and that means I end up losing a few of you visually, but I think we can share the screen. Okay, everybody see this? Is it big enough?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I need to figure out too whether we need to do this by a PO box or whether, I don't know how the mail gets to town hall. If it's the PO box or if it's the actual physical address. Minor detail, but I'll figure that out. I don't know which one works for them if this had to be mailed back. So basically we've gone through this. There's a couple things. Cindy had made a couple comments that I think are valid in terms of still trying to consolidate a little bit. This number 6 and 7 are two here, which were, remember we had the employment status, so it was more like, do you work in town? And then how far was your commute or something like that. It was two separate questions. And so the suggestion here would be just rephrasing it a little bit as employment status. So are you retired? Do you work at home or do you telecommute from home? Do you work in town or do you commute, and what is that? So kind of combining that question. Does that seem to make sense to people?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would put the status of unemployed up with not the commutation, the miles, but up above.
Move it up, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it needs to be with that.
Put it where before?
Well, we're up in the section that deals with working or not.
It's all working.
Oh, yeah, okay. So
Yeah, but now it's in with the length of the commute, that's all.
So before the commute part, yeah.
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay, just note that the world isn't what it was 6 months ago. that there's lots of people that are telecommuting that normally would not be telecommuting. And so I included this parenthetical point of being normally
Yeah.
or whatever. And I don't know what people think about that. I know my daughter-in-law is telecommuting, but she normally would be going into an office, and so is my son. So what do you think about referencing the fact normally?
I think that could be confusing because what does normally mean? I mean, put in context, I hear what you're saying, Cindy, but I'm not sure what that means, one.
Okay.
And two, I think we're all going to learn, I know where I am, that there's going to be, quote, a new normal. And there's
Okay.
going to be a lot more people teleworking now.
Yeah.
Those who resisted or businesses who thought it didn't work for them are realizing we can do this. So I don't know if it makes sense actually to do kind of a before and after thought process.
Should this go into the introductory paragraph?
Which?
The one, the one that will be the preamble to this whole survey, or into a poster or whatever. Are we talking about the way it was or the way it might be in the future? I think we have to consider that now is not how it's always going to be. That's my thought.
And my thoughts, I hear what you're saying. I guess I would say we don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not going to go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
So for me, it's less confusing to just ask the question. They'll answer it as they see it, either as they are now or.
So you'd want to take out normally, though? Is that what you're saying?
That's just my vote.
Okay.
I wanted that brought up because I really think I needed people like Jim to give input on that.
Yeah.
What does everybody else think?
Anybody else? Yeah, some thoughts about that?
I think you can also create a line that may, to address what may be the new normal, or, kind of how this could be temporary. We don't really know.
Right.
Maybe having an option or a answer where you can, maybe put something like additional comments, and then maybe capture or allow the survey taker to provide those comments. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be, they're going to have to respond to, the options that they have there, but maybe that could be insightful. I don't know. It's just a comment.
I think we're going to have to realize that the data we collect this year is going to be reflective of what's gone on since March of this year, including the unemployment piece. There are people that are going to list unemployed where they were employed 5-6 months ago,
That's
and they
true.
intend to be employed again.
Yeah, that is true.
Yep. Some of the data is just going to be skewed, and we're just going to have to be conscious of that.
Yeah.
I think that's all we can do. Yeah.
Is this a valid question to even bother to ask, given those complications?
Good question.
It's a really good question, because I personally have an issue with the term unemployed. So there's a lot of people who are home, maybe they're head of household, maybe, whatever label you give it. It's certainly work, but it's not paid work, but they're not unemployed. So this number 6 makes a lot of assumptions that frankly make me a little bit uncomfortable.
Do we need the question?
I mean, I think what we were talking about originally was the idea, if people were working from home, that might lead to the notion of having a better internet service. If people were commuting, that might be an issue with the roads. Those were some of our talking points before.
Yep.
But
Chris, aren't we capturing that data in another part of this survey about this need for better internet connection, broadband, et cetera?
yeah,
I'm wondering, and I'm asking out loud, do we really need this question of employment status at all?
I don't think so.
what's anybody else think? I mean, I hadn't thought about it actually. I mean, in terms of figuring out how many retire, I mean, again, it's that question of, what are we going to do with the data? So we know how many people are retired and how many are working from home, but nothing is normal, like you say, and whatever is today's situation may be very different 6 months from now too. So
And honestly, yeah, just from the age distribution, you can tell, you can get a pretty good idea of what percentage of the population is retired, just from the census data.
All right. Everybody okay with taking it out? What do you think? Anybody?
I agree. I
Yeah.
think we can take it out.
Take it out.
Okay.
Oh.
And then school enrollment, we did leave in just to say, just to know what their school arrangement was. We weren't asking for the number of kids, but whether they had kids at William E. Norris or homeschooled or whatever. Again, any thoughts about that? Is that?
Let me ask Francine, who has been on the school board, or
Yes.
still is.
Yeah,
Is
liaison.
this data we could get elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, we could get Norris, the high school, the vocational, school choice, charter school, where we pay the bills. You know, something I don't know about private or homeschooled. Those would be the two that I wouldn't know. I can't imagine we have very many kids in either of those situations, but
Well, we
I mean,
did.
that gives you an idea about how our education system may be utilized or not.
Right.
Well, to the previous question, what are we doing with this data?
Yeah. I mean, now that I see this again, I swear I've been looking at these too long. But this could be part of just our background general information about the town. Here's, it's not that we're going to compile some, magical analysis from this school data, I don't think, right? It's just going to be stating that, this is the school population in town at this point in time. There's this option to have, school choice. There's this many in vocational school.
Right, Chris, I would argue that given the expected return rate on this, if we're lucky, we're going to get 5%. The data we can get from other sources is going to be more accurate as to who's where than this question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can get very, pretty good information on that from
I think
even from our accounting office, because they have to, that's how we pay our bills.
Yeah. Well, or from the principals of each school as well. I mean, I would think they would have some of that too. So, all right, then everybody okay? We get rid of 6 and 7?
Yes.
All right.
That's
Now,
good.
Whoever hold your peace. I really want to, hopefully we can run through this. So, and this number 8, the one in blue, was just combining the wording so that it wasn't quite so repetitive. So a rural residential community that balances small scale commercial and residential growth with open space. And I don't know if conservation is really the right word.
Preservation, yeah.
Preservation. So that choice is a bit different than number 2 and number 3. Does that seem better to anybody? Is that okay? So still a residential, I think we had, keep it a residential community like it is or something was what we had before. And I think this sort of defines it a little bit more or clarifies it a little bit more. Any strong thoughts about it? Do those seem to be decent enough choices that are distinct enough that people wouldn't have trouble answering what they're looking
As I
at?
recollect when we were going over this before, there were too many choices that sounded too similar.
Yeah, so this tried to combine them. So that's where that is. Okay.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, there's a typo in number 8.
Okay. Where?
The first sentence, it says, what model represents how, and take off the word do.
Oh.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Good catch. Yeah. All right. Number 9, just jumping down here. This, Jim, you'd brought up the issue about residential tax stuff. This in red here, I got from Martha Leamy, our assessor. So we can figure out if we want to include some of that in here. But her comment, shifting the tax burden does not increase revenue. It merely shifts the burden to other taxpayers. So with such a small commercial industrial and personal property base, 6.44% versus 93.56% residential in Southampton. Basically, it's of no advantage to adopt a split rate and may detract new businesses from moving to town. So I think, Jim, you were the one that was talking about needing a little bit of rationale as to why the tax rates may remain the same. And our question was, how important is it to you to encourage new commercial development in town? And we had the choices there of to choose one, which was very important, somewhat important, or not important. Shall we try to, we can collapse some of Martha's wording there, but just to say that with a much higher residential base, it's of no advantage to adopt a split rate because the burden does not increase revenue.
Why ask the question then? If it's not going to be of any advantage, what might number 9 just be deleted?
Okay, I think.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point,
Yeah,
Christina. I think, if anything, the question educates the town, because that's a classic
yeah,
fallback.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
this may not be the tool to educate people.
yeah.
Because you're right, the way it's worded, it's kind of like we're telling them how to answer, and that doesn't feel good either.
Yeah,
No.
Martha is saying, answer it, that it's not important.
Mhm.
It's suggesting the answer, I think.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's the reason that we don't have it. But I think, there seems to be this conception or misconception about, if we only had more commercial development, that would be better for our taxes. And so this would kind of address that situation, that more commercial development really doesn't make a difference with our taxes because we don't have the split rate.
So the question to me is, do we want more commercial development, period, because you want the convenience of having more shopping options?
Mhm.
I mean, is that what we're asking? I mean, is that what we want to know? That's not what we're
right,
asking.
I think the assumption, Francine, is that people do ask about this a lot, about taxes.
Yeah.
And how can we lower our taxes? Well, let's get more commercial in here, and that will lower our taxes.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not it.
And that isn't really realistic. So, but yet it's a question people ask, and on a survey like this, people would want to, I would think, would want to see that, yet they don't want to see a question that tells them how to answer. So
Right.
maybe instead of a question, we just make a statement somewhere in here and say, essentially, and it's kind of summarizing, we're not including a question about commercial because blah, 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 blah. It doesn't make sense.
Well,
This is why.
and also later on in the survey, we asked questions about other sorts of development approaches, one of which is, do we want more commercial businesses? So maybe it doesn't even belong here, but I like the idea of whomever said it's a good place to start educating people. But there's an important data point that's not included, and that is that increased residential development will actually increase municipal costs. So maybe we need to remove this question from here, move on, move to the other areas of the survey which talk more about development and infrastructure, and then include Martha Leamy's quote and maybe even other information later on.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really valid point, Cindy, but now I'm going to
I love you,
contradict
Jim.
myself.
I love you. Go ahead.
This is going to get to be a very big document. If we start shifting, even though I just said this, my bad. If we start shifting to this becoming an educational instrument, it's going to get very big.
Well, you
brought up
haven't.
a valid point to educate, Cindy. So maybe we just ask the question, and when people say, yes, I want more commercial taxes, because then we have to follow up and educate the townspeople. Because we could educate them about, you're right, people think more houses means less taxes. Not necessarily. So think of the other education points. Educate the people about the advantages of open space. Educate the people about the advantage of preserving conservation land. You know, we could go on, and suddenly this becomes a very big document where we're, quote, educating our neighbors.
Yeah.
I think we get down a slippery slope. So I'm taking back what I said about the education.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll
Just one man's opinion.
It's okay. We'll keep it highlighted. I just want to kind of go through this and see if we can get through the whole ball of wax here within a reasonable amount of time. And then we know that we still got a little bit more tweaking to do. This was the one on land use. So this is, again, this first category, and we were trying to rate these 1 to 5, how people felt about this. Yeah, okay. So the first one, Cindy, I think you had made a change here of just saying make no changes in zoning bylaws. And my comment was people don't even necessarily know that we've got 3 different residential zoning areas. You know, I mean, again, it's that educational point. You know, is this something that needs to be further explained, or is it not something useful? So that was, I don't have, does anybody have the survey that I sent out? This, Cindy, you had changed that question, right?
Yeah, you're putting up the draft that I had emailed you.
Right.
You have the old draft, Chris.
I can't see it at the same time though. So,
Okay,
so
I don't have it in front of me.
yeah. So this one just said make no changes in current zoning bylaws was your suggestion, and I'm forgetting the other one had more explanation to it.
Yeah, it did, yeah. It talked about acreage size, and my point was that you had to really read closely that it had to do with outlying districts, the more rural areas. We do have minimum acreage requirements, but the village, the residential village, have lower. It was incorrect in the sense of the fact that we do have. You could build in residential village with a smaller, less than 1 acre size lot. And to me, that was a little confusing. So granted, this doesn't define the 3 different geographical areas in our town, but it does say make no current change in the bylaws. In a way, I feel like taking that one out, that whole first one, I just wonder if we need to delete that whole thing.
Well, I don't know. I kind of like it because if we're providing a lot of options, but there's no option for keep it as it is.
Okay, then there's going to be the vast majority of people are not going to really know about the zoning of our town. I just don't believe they do. They don't get it, unless you're a developer or you're an owner of a piece of property that you want to develop, and want to look at the specific zoning bylaws. I don't think most people even look at that stuff.
Maybe provide an answer, an option to answer with not applicable or don't know. I don't know. I've also seen that. And that would be if you could choose that for any of these. Hopefully not a lot of people would answer that.
Yeah, really.
Right, but I would argue that you don't need to know the details of the bylaws to know that you like things the way they are.
Okay, then leave this one.
All right.
Right? You like town the way it is. You're not interested, for example, in cluster development. You're not interested in creating larger minimum lot sizes. But without the first question of make no changes, other than saying you're not interested in these suggestions, there's no way for you to express leave it as it is.
Okay. All right, that's valid. I think that's valid. Okay. All these others in black are ones that we had done last time. And again, these ones that are highlighted, there's a couple here that are combined. So this encourage commercial development by expanding land zone for commercial use and for light industrial use. So that kind of combines that second one as opposed to making that a separate. The difference was commercial development or non-retail commercial development. I'm not sure that is that crucial to have 2 separate questions on that thing.
So what Chris is looking at is some things that I looked at, and the things that are highlighted in this turquoisey blue, I'm suggesting we remove completely.
Okay.
And she's pointing out that that one, we can combine a little bit in the one right above it with the light blue printing that you can see there.
Yeah.
I don't think we need the one about sign guidelines. I just think that's,
Really?
I don't think it's that important personally. I think it's nice, but not super important.
Yeah, that's, I agree.
And I believe the
I
one,
do think that when you, you know, the sign guidelines can be attributed to the certain types of development you would have in other parts of town. So you suggest establishing design standards for a walkable mixed-use district. That's where I could see sign standards being, you know, important. So maybe that captures, you know, that intuitively it captures what, you know, what a sign could look like by the nature of the neighborhood that it's in, or the where in town it's in. So if, you know, there is if there's a lot of support for establishing design standards in certain districts, I think that maybe you can take away that, maybe the sign guidelines, you know, could be helped more, or I don't know.
I mean, I think there are some sign guidelines that exist in our
that's right.
town policies or somewhere, because when CDH moved in up here, the Cooley Dick, right, they had to have, you know,
Right.
specific signage and whatever. There's something that already controls that.
That's right.
It's
Yeah,
something-
this is, yeah, I think this is more than
No, I don't think so,
we
because
need to deal with.
I don't know, because this kind of says, again, we know there's certain towns, you go down the Cape, there's certain limits, you know, signs have to be a certain size, they can't be lit with neon or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, it may not be the opinion of anyone sitting on this panel right now, but there may be people in town who would like to see less flashy lighting of signs in town and a more subdued look. And I think this question captures that.
Okay. I'm kind of in between. It doesn't, I'm not thinking it's a very super important question, but it's
No, it's not super important. But
I
I
mean,
suppose any one of these questions of themselves is not super
Well,
important.
And the thing here too, keep in mind, maybe again, it's in the wrong place. This is under land use. So maybe it belongs elsewhere.
I mean, your sign guidelines are in your zoning bylaw.
That's right.
So
Yep.
I feel like they would go here, just because you kind of clump development, and signs are usually attributed to a site plan approval process, for non-commercial signs specifically.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah,
agree.
So what are we saying? You want to leave it here or not leave it here?
I would leave it there.
Okay. All right. All right.
Okay,
Well, for now.
So I'll highlight that one.
Yeah. All right. The one up above, I just put in yellow, the encourage the non-retail commercial. I think that's kind of combined in the one above. Is that okay?
Yep. So take that one out.
All right. All right. And then the next one, oops, sorry. Sorry, I didn't do the one up above. Sorry. Purchase and protect as much open space as possible from development. And I think this gets down later on as well, which is one thought not to have it here. But as Cindy and I were talking, the whole notion about purchase is really kind of the issue, because there's a lot of scuttlebutt in town about, you know, why did we always have to be purchasing all this land, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe it's more protect as much open space as possible from development rather than purchase, just as a.
And I'm proposing it be removed altogether.
Okay. Well, you're the open space person, so.
Well, I believe that there's so many questions in this entire survey that talk about the various approaches to land, and whether it be residential, commercial, retail development, that gives us the opportunity to get the pulse of how people feel in town. To me, this is just such an overt question that I don't think this serves us in a very positive way. Because if you go to the top, Chris, of the survey, so I can look at the options, the 5 options: strongly oppose, neutral, support, strongly support. I'd rather have people contribute their ideas of what they think about open space embedded in the whole concept of what do we want Southampton to look like. That's why I'm not in favor of
Yeah,
this.
I hear you. I guess I just don't want it to get lost. I mean, I think we've spent so much time and effort on open space that, you know, it's near and dear to us and we see it all the time perhaps, but I just don't want it to be so kind of hidden in a question that people don't really get the point.
Well, I think it also will offer, we have been purchasing, and Chris, you say there is the scuttlebutt about it. It will give an idea of whether people are in favor of
Yeah.
of more purchasing or more protection.
Yeah,
I personally think it's a very important question.
yeah.
Christina,
tend
would you
to-
rephrase it in any way? Do you think?
Well, we may come down to the, and we'll get down to the end here, but we may come back to this a little bit where the purchase may reappear later on. I can't remember, but if for now we left out purchase, just what do you think about that, Christina? Just leave it as protected.
Well, I think that's better than I would be not in favor of putting purchase. I would.
Okay.
Protect is better to my mind.
Okay, that's fine. I would tend to agree with that too. We'll come back to it a little bit later down. I just wanted to see how far we can get through this. Okay, so we did the sign. Then the other two, Cindy, you were talking about help preserve and promote active use of farmland and establish policies and programs to encourage local food production. Even as I had this one in here, I thought, you know, what kind of policies and programs are we going to do to encourage food production? I mean, I don't know.
And how do you help preserve?
Exactly. So you know, the APR exists. Those that want to take advantage of it know about it or are finding out about it.
So my only question about that is, do towns, surrounding towns, as a municipality, you know, work with their local food producers, farmers to be a part of programs like CISA or whatnot, or is that happening completely outside of the municipal framework?
Yeah. Well,
Because if towns do get involved in help promoting that, then this question probably should remain. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
I think before answering Jim's question directly, read the next question, because I think this encompasses the fact that there's many ways to approach preservation and utilization of our lands. And one of them is, you know, the remaining agricultural lands. We preserve in perpetuity our agricultural lands. And then I don't know the answer as to whether municipalities get involved of, you know, sort of identifying farms to work, to be involved in the CISA program or something like that. I don't know the answer. I just felt like this next question, rather lengthy question, sort of captured a lot of stuff in it, and we could remove some other questions.
But haven't we already done that? I mean, that's one thing that I wondered about is we've had the two educational forums, essentially.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, we've done it, Christina, but it's an ongoing process, you know. We didn't get, you know, a super high percentage of the current landowners, the large landowners. We got some, and we got great ones, but we didn't get a lot. And secondly, it's an ongoing process, you know. We had people attend those meetings that turned around and sold their land to developers. So, you know, I think it's like I said, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, that is true.
My thing is that it incorporates so many different aspects of this, rather than asking very simple, discrete, you know, you're talking about agriculture, ecology, wetlands. I mean, one of those may be of interest, but the rest of them are not to people, and they're going to respond based on how they feel about, well, I don't really care about those other things, and that may color their response.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I mean, it's like a menu. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
All right. I mean,
Well,
this,
we can come back to it. It's just,
yeah, I mean, this in a way is really the definition of open space, right? I mean, this gets us what open space is all about.
Correct, yeah.
But maybe it's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful, but the most of it is just, again, educational about what it means. But the first part of it is really the meat of it.
Yeah, right.
So it actually reads okay to me. The last 3/4 of it explains to the reader what they're answering.
Would it make any difference? It's just an optical thing. Would it make any difference to put including remaining agricultural lands, that whole last 2.5 sentences there, or phrases in parentheses, so that you're looking at preserve in perpetuity a select group of Southampton's open spaces? That's really your question.
Yep.
And then,
right.
I think parenthetically would be good.
Yeah,
would that
it's
help?
like for example, so that they can see whether or not.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Would that help a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And what about the educate landowners, or continue to educate landowners?
I think continue is a good idea.
Okay. All right. Good. We'll go with
Now, going then back up to the top, it would seem as though protect as much open space as possible. Wouldn't it be a good idea to cluster those together? And maybe that does become a little more, it's almost redundant given the next questions. It seems as though they should perhaps be clustered minimally.
Okay, that could move down, sure. Do you think that ends up being redundant though, or?
No, but why have that separate from help preserve and promote active use of remaining farmland? Why would that be so much higher up?
No, it doesn't have to be. It can definitely come down. Yeah, that can move down. Sure, absolutely. Okay. And then this was another one, active recreational resources. Again, this has been part of what we've done, I think, with some of the open space that we've acquired.
I proposed removing this one because the open space and recreation plan update survey asked these kinds of questions, and they asked many more questions too. So we talked about active recreational and passive recreational activities. I didn't really think this was necessary here. That's why I proposed removing it.
Well, Ken, when you're compiling the data here, will you be working with both surveys or just this one?
I think for the purposes of the master plan committee, I think we'll be working off this one. I think that within the narrative of the plan, obviously you're going to talk about other planning processes that have occurred that, you know, kind of mold this particular process. So more than likely, I'm going to include language in there that says the town also updated their open space and recreation plan, the previous year, and and probably provide a sentence or two that suggests, that probably draws some of the data that was collected in the open space survey.
Well, you're working with both, so that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I do have that insight in finalizing what the open space plan will be, and be able to inform this document with the findings that we'll have with the open space plan.
I kind of just looking at this plan or this survey alone, I like this question because it's a completely different reason for having open space. And there certainly are people who want more recreational opportunities and they don't want open space necessarily for, water purity and so forth. They want more opportunities for these activities. So to my mind, it is informative, and I guess I would rely on Ken's judgment as to whether it would be useful to be in here. I would like to know that. I would like to know if in purchasing open or in acquiring and protecting open spaces, is there a call for recreational use of it? Because on most conservation lands, you can't use any motorized vehicles.
And I think more people would be inclined to support this if they were to realize that there was some benefit to them and it wasn't this idea the town is just acquiring property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this brings value, I think, to the quality of their life.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, to their interests. That's right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's valid. So what we'll end up doing is maybe take out this preserve the remaining farmland one, because that does get incorporated in here, unless we know anything about, like you say, the municipalities involved in CISA programs. If you think that's valid to leave in there, but we can certainly move this one down, the protect open space down, so it adds in. So there's like 3 together that are kind of the open space focus a little bit. Okay.
And preserve or protecting as much open space as possible includes the remaining farmland.
It does, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I think we could actually get rid of this removing farmland one, this one here, the preserve and promote active use of remaining farmland.
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's. I want to get down because we've skipped. I'm going to skip right down to the very end because this question we've never gotten to in all of our time. So, and then I'll go right back to the middle. There were 2 here about on mobility. 2 or 3 on mobility, about anybody needing public transport with a disabled access van. And then if public transport were brought to Southampton, what routes and services would you be interested in using? Rank these 1 to 4, with 1 being the highest that you'd like to see, the one that you'd rather see the most. And it's actually probably 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe it's 1 to 6 now, not 1 to 4, whatever. What's anybody think about this? The choices here, just basically up and down College Highway, Westhampton to Easthampton with the connection to Northampton, just the town center to Easthampton. That maybe
That's redundant, those 2.
well, Westhampton goes a little bit farther than the town center. I don't know. I mean, Westfield rather. Greater service on County Road, connection to Holyoke. I don't know what that was all about. Maybe that tied together. Anybody?
Well,
yeah.
My thought, and I'll be honest, I don't use public transportation, but mostly and I have in the past wherever other places I've lived, but there's connections. So if somebody needed to get to Holyoke, they would probably go to the center of Easthampton and get a connection bus there.
Mm-hmm.
Does it need to be a direct connection? That's just one thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Possibly. So maybe we don't need, or so with connection to Northampton and or Holyoke, we could do that or something like that. Perhaps. I don't know. Anybody have any brilliant insights on this?
Well, I would include, I think, you can go connect to Holyoke via Easthampton. I don't know if you can get to the Holyoke Mall that way, but maybe the real issue is, and it's a little bit of convenience too.
Yeah.
If there was a direct shuttle to the mall from the town of Southampton downtown, would people be interested in that?
Mm-hmm.
So, you say connection to Holyoke, I'm thinking maybe Holyoke Mall.
Okay. Which would
It's
be
a little
more
bit pre-selecting on our part, but you could put Holyoke and, parentheses, Holyoke Mall or whatever.
But then that would be the Westfield Easthampton line, wouldn't it?
No, because Westfield is not going to go to the Holyoke Mall.
No, but I mean, if you're going down Route 10, I mean, this is what the choices would be. So Route 10 from Westfield to Easthampton. So along Route 10, you're going to deviate down to the mall off on 202, right?
And that's quite a deviation. I don't think so.
No? Okay. How else do people get to the mall?
That's the point. Do people want a way to get to the mall? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying it well, but Do people in town want an easy way to get to the mall?
Okay.
And I only single out the mall because it's a large shopping center where people may want to go. People may have less interest in going to Westfield, maybe not. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw out something. We talked a little while ago about what's the new normal going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have heard that malls are maybe
Not going to
not.
be a destination.
Yeah, are we going to always have them as destinations like we think of them in the past?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. Or could we have this as a write-in rather than giving people choices? Would that be better? It's more
I kinda like-
compilation though.
maybe have, one option, I don't ever intend to use public transportation. And another option, I would like transportation and then write in.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that easy? Is that easy to track, Ken?
No.
No.
Probably not.
That's what I thought.
When you provide an option for them to fill out certain routes,
Yeah.
I think if we establish what those routes could be, that would be
Yeah.
a lot more helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So this could maybe be so this could maybe be just be connections, whatever, somehow connection to Holyoke and/or Holyoke Mall, or something like that. So we could have 5.
Well, I don't know. Does anybody ever go to Holyoke other than to the mall?
What about Holyoke Community College?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's true, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, that would give us 5 possibilities. So what I was trying to get here was, a rank order is like, the one I would really want the most would be, Westfield to Easthampton. But, because, the people that are living on the south side of town, basically. The towns, I mean, up and down College Highway maybe is the entire, maybe that one's redundant, is it?
I almost think it is.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it almost sounds like a little in-town shuttle service,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
people want. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Westfield to Easthampton, connect to Northampton. Also to Easthampton. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, if I lived up on, like where I live, I'd have to get to the center, or a bus won't come to my house on the corner of Glendale Road.
Mhm.
We'd have to get to another spot in town to get a
Right.
public transportation.
Okay. Well,
I think that's a given, though,
yeah.
because we're too spread out to ever, if you have a shuttle bus that just runs up and down College Highway between our southern and northern borders, that's just going to satisfy the people who live along College Highway.
Right. Well, let's think about that. We're not totally.
But before you go away from that one, there should be an option that said, I don't expect to ever utilize public transportation. And I think
Yes.
that'll be very telling, because I think this is essentially a commuter community.
I agree, Cindy. We're making an assumption here. There's no option to say NA or.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would include where it says Holyoke or Holyoke Mall. I like the idea of HCC. I think Ken is right.
Yeah.
You can
So
put
we
Holyoke and then parentheses HCC or Holyoke Mall.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. We had done the sidewalks one before about extending the sidewalk system, and then also about the bike path. So we had done those in that little space right here under mobility. The two on infrastructure, I'm thinking can be combined. This what's in purple, we hadn't really decided on. We keep never getting to this last part. But I'm seeing here that we've got our broadband is already listed down here. We've got it up here already. So this one can go away. And I think our purchase our lands and open space doesn't really belong here in infrastructure per se. And we've dealt with it before. The public safety complex, we've got that up here already. So let's see. So the sewer system, we've got that. I mean, we can make sure that the choice is clearly stated, but we've dealt slightly with the sewer system right there, and we've got it here too. So then the solar installation, got it a little bit here, but again, not quite clear. And then the one that isn't up here is this: convert the police and fire historic buildings for safer, usable civic or other purpose.
Oh, can I add, if we're gonna add the
Sure.
public? Never mind.
Community center, I've
I
got
got
that.
it. I got it. It's good.
Community meeting center, yeah. Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you change the fourth one down on number 22 to say build a community meeting center or convert other municipal property to be a community center. So that's wordy, but could we have that as an option? So it's not just build a brand new one?
So you're talking about the old town hall, maybe?
Something like the old town hall, or if we got a safety complex, the old fire station, or the,
Mhm.
Build or repurpose or something.
Yes,
That's good.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Repurpose, whatever.
All other municipal buildings to create, or just municipal buildings,
Existing municipal building.
existing, yeah, that's nice.
Ugh, I'm gonna give myself a, okay. Okay, I got the idea there. All right. Is there anything else that this would be, so this would be 1, 2, 3, 5, then if we put I think this is still separate because this is still an issue. I think that one ought to be one that's up here by its lonesome.
Okay.
Because I think that, we're looking at what are we doing with the old police station and so forth, and,
Why do
mean,
Sorry.
you mean by its lonesome, Chris, as part of one of the questions under 22, or a separate question entirely?
So no, as part of 22, just to be
Okay.
sure it's added in there in 22. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm a little reluctant to take out increased taxes for preserving more open space. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to go up there, but that is another interesting thing to know to gauge support for open space. Are people willing to have their taxes raised
Right.
in order to preserve it? So putting it into question 22 does seem a little bit redundant in that we've already focused on strategically located lands. But it would be nice to know if residents have any interest or are interested enough in it to have taxes increase.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very specific. It's one thing to be interested, and this is saying, would you be willing to pay, essentially?
Yeah. Because some of this, we've had to go through we've gotten some grants, but we've, had to do some outside loans and so forth, right, on some of this land. So we've got some borrowing realities here too. So all of that ends up affecting some of our tax rate, does it not?
I think that the borrowing was temporary until we got reimbursed. I don't think it changed the taxes.
Well, no, the Pomeroy Meadowland, we've got a 10-year note on it. The water.
No, those are matching grants, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Matching grants, we had to.
Yeah, but we've just negotiated a loan, or not on a loan. What is it called? What is it more?
Yeah. Well, it is affecting us. I'm saying, Chris, that we are paying for it. Taxpayers are
yeah.
paying for it through a
Yeah.
loan.
I mean, we've got a 10-year agreement to pay something on that. Yeah, we had to put up a certain amount ourselves. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Then leave it in there, yep, all right.
This pursue renewable energy development, is that clear enough? Or this other one down below, encourage installation of solar farms on private or town land? Is that more clear or?
Well, it's more specific, but it's also limiting.
Yeah.
Renewable energy can mean a lot of things,
Yes.
wind, etc.
Okay,
So I kind of like the renewable energy.
okay, okay. So let's say that these guys down here will probably go away then. I'm gonna put them all in yellow, but we'll keep these guys up here.
Good, good.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll get back to that. It's good. I'm glad we got to that because we have missed that that choice every time we've gotten to the end of this thing. All right. Then just one more thing to look at was just on housing, I think. Just real quickly. Let's see. Okay, this was a thought too, and again, this is some of Cindy's and part of my discussion too. Number 12 could be possibly redundant too, because here it's based on your income level. Are there sufficient housing options for you and your family? Yes or no, and comments. And then it goes down to, are you satisfied with your present housing? And I am or I'm not, because why? Because it's too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. So it sort of seems like this is not giving us much information as the other one does.
I would agree. Feels redundant.
Okay, all right. So if nobody objects, I think I would move to take out 12, but leave 13. That gives people a little bit more clarity as to whether they're satisfied with their present housing or whether they're not, and then it tells us why they're not. I think that gives us a better understanding of how people feel about their housing situation. Any final thoughts on that? Okay.
And
Christine, yeah?
let's see, so are there sufficient housing options? Well, I'm not sure. I do think it's quite redundant
Uh-huh.
because if you're not satisfied with your present housing, do you have options for other housing in Southampton?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that sort of goes to 15.
Yes,
Which is trying to offer those other options as alternatives if people were to stay.
Yeah, we're just trying to reduce any redundancy, but I don't
Yeah.
want to. I don't want to, scalp it unnecessarily.
Well, I think that's one fundamental question we have. Based on your income, is there housing available? And we have, that's been one of the premises all along, that there's what's being
not.
built now, the new housing stock is
Right.
not for a lot of us. It's
Yeah.
a lot of us are excluded from it.
Yeah.
but Christina, number 13 includes the option for saying it's too expensive.
No, that's saying that your present housing is too expensive to manage.
Is there some way to consolidate those two? If your answer is no, then give them those options. If your answer to 12 is no, then the options would be check one of the things that are in, too large, too small, too
That's a good
expensive.
idea. That's a good idea.
If you answer no,
Then select one of the following.
okay. So would you get rid of I'm satisfied
Right.
with my present housing?
Yes.
You get rid of that sentence?
Yeah.
Well, you
yeah,
have to get rid of I'm not satisfied with my present. Oh,
Yes.
So okay.
different questions.
You'd get rid of,
Yes.
you'd get rid of all that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oops, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
And then take out comments, and in place of comments, give them these choices.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Gets to the same place. I like
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave 12 as it is. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Leave 12 as it is.
take out comments.
Take out comments. Okay. Gonna get back to my color coding here so I don't screw up. And then I'm gonna get rid of all this.
Yeah.
And we'll combine those.
And yes.
Okay, I think
If
that,
Great.
no, choose all that apply.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, that might work. All right, good. All right, and then down here, it's again, I was feeling a little bit redundant. So if you were to move to another situation, living situation, would you choose to stay in Southampton, yes or no? And again, that comes back to that affordability issue, I think, probably.
Yeah.
But again, I'm assuming. And then if you were to move, what type of housing would you anticipate would meet your needs? So I'm not quite clear if those are distinct enough as two separate questions or if they ought to also think about some level of combination here. Because one is saying, would you stay in Southampton or not? And then if you, the other one is presuming you would stay in Southampton, but what kind of housing would you foresee yourself wanting to have?
I may have been the person to dream up question 14, and so I'm not married to it. You can let it go.
I mean, maybe we could have another choice.
So
down
the
here.
way,
Could we?
well, either that or under 15, I think that's what you're saying, Chris. You basically say, I'm not interested in moving into Southampton.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good place. Yeah.
So there could be one of
One of the options under 15.
would be what that I probably
Not interested in remaining in Southampton.
Okay.
Yes. I would not be interested. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm just going to make an abbreviation for myself. Okay. Good. Okay. Because that would help do that. Okay. I think
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay. I like that. Good. Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty. And then, okay. So then again, we're asking the same thing in some different ways here. So this would be the notion of promoting affordable and accessible housing for first-time buyers and seniors. And so we gave them options of, what those things would be in terms of how the town could promote that. But then right below it, we kind of asked this again, of promoting the development of senior housing, affordable housing. So I wasn't sure if these two also somehow end up telling us double information. They're similar.
It does seem a bit redundant.
I'm going to move away for a second, you guys. I'm going to lose my power. I got to go get my power cord. So.
Okay. Is the wording better? I mean, do we want to give, this was okay. I would like to see the town promote the following. So this would give an idea of what it would really, again, the more detail of what it could look like in terms of whatever housing policy or, whatever we want to call it. And this is obviously a bit more higher scale or more generic, I guess.
Yeah, coming from a housing perspective, the more I think about it, the more specific is better.
Uh-huh. Because, here we're saying, I would like to see the town promote the following that could provide affordable and accessible
Yeah.
housing options.
I like 16 and 17 could go away for me.
You think? Is there any piece of 17? And we've talked about, we could make this clearer here. We said first-time buyers / seniors, but we could, just make that for first-time buyers and seniors, just so that it's, more clear.
Yeah.
I think the last option under 17 could stay and go up.
Okay, that's what I was
I
wondering.
can't see it. You're not
Yep,
Quite
okay,
scroll
right
down.
there.
Come down,
There
yeah.
you go.
Excess grants or create a no interest revolving loan fund for rehabilitation of limited income homes.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, so we might keep that one, but not
Yeah.
keep these guys.
yeah,
The others seem redundant.
good.
Okay, good. That's helpful. Oops. As usual, what I want to do. There is a method to my madness, believe it or not.
As long as you know what it is, that's what's
As
important.
long as I don't forget it between meetings, we're okay. All right, well, I think that gets us pretty tight. That gets us a really good, tighter version than what we had. So I think, once again, I will do my final magic tricks. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. To pull this together. Goodness, do we have any further comments on this?
Let's help Chris out. She can't talk anymore. Do you
Right.
need water, Chris?
Well, after 2 hours, I think you have a right to be.
Yeah. Well,
After
how's-
two,
how's
she was on the select board till 11:30 last night.
Yeah,
So
well,
was
I wasn't talking though, but anyway, how's everybody feel in general about what this is looking like? Does this feel good in terms of what we're going to get for information? Are we missing something that, we should be asking? I think we've tried to hit a lot of
Feels
things.
good to me.
I'm going to ask Ken a question.
Uh-huh.
Ken, do you remember at the meeting of the Open Space and Recreation Plan update that we talked about seeing if we should be utilizing this vehicle to capture information that, if you recall, some people were concerned that we didn't really get enough information about the recreation side of our town. And we talked about inserting a couple of questions for this.
Okay.
What do you think, Ken?
Well, I think we had that conversation about that specific line that Christina brought up with regards to recreation use of, like, for RVs or
Right.
so I could see that unless the Open Space Committee, and obviously I will rely on you, Cindy and Francine, if there were things particularly to open space and recreation that can be captured within any of these strongly opposed versus strongly support, because I think that they would go in and fit nicely within, discussing the open space section that we have here.
I'll let Francine answer her opinion on this. I think from the open space standpoint, we've got a lot of opportunity to get opinions already in this survey. I'm looking specifically on the recreation part, and I'm very specifically looking on whether or not we should ask questions about utilization of our current active recreation properties. Don't you remember in the visioning session, some people were concerned that Labrie Field didn't appear to be used at all? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Remember
Yes.
that, Francine?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And we were concerned that we didn't get the right demographic response. Remember that?
Right.
Did we get enough young families? I don't know.
Well, I mean, the only thing related to sort of Labrie Field here was the extending the sidewalks. If we wanted to have another one, maybe it would fit under infrastructure. I was trying to think if we wanted another recreation type question.
Yeah, as we, we talked about using the open space to add some value to the quality of people's lives in terms of how they would use that space. I think it would be appropriate to insert something here.
Uh-huh. So.
Then it would be just a little more specific as to what people would want and help them appreciate open space a little bit more if there was some benefit from it.
Yeah. But what about, do we want to explore anything about the current use of Conant Park versus Labrie Field, or, I mean, I don't know. We're going to have, the on the warrant should be the approval, hopefully, of the 2 pickleball courts at Conant Park. So that'll be new infrastructure. But
My general feeling is leave it like it is. But I just wanted to bring this open for discussion, see what everybody else thought.
okay. All right.
Well, honestly, I mean, if we could do 1 survey instead of 2, I think that would be a benefit. You know,
Right.
I think people just would say, "What, another one?"
Right.
You know.
Absolutely.
So
But we want to be sure that we're, you know, if there's something that you need to know or get asked from the open space plan update perspective, we want to be sure we're addressing it here, I guess, right?
So Chris, I had given you those 2 additional questions. Remember that in the email?
Yep, which again, I can't pull up at the same time, sorry.
I can read them aloud. I can do that right now. They're very short.
All right.
Hold on a second, you guys. I had suggested 2 additional questions. They could go under infrastructure. Very quick. One of them says, does Southampton provide enough opportunity for passive recreation? Parentheses, walking, hiking, biking, etc. Yes, no. If no, what additional opportunities would you recommend pursuing? And the other one was, does Southampton provide enough opportunity for active recreation, i.e. baseball, pickleball, soccer, etc.? Yes, no. If no, what additional opportunities would you recommend? I just thought that that would give people an opportunity to say, we got enough, or we don't.
I think you're going to hear from people. They want ATV trails and more horseback riding trails. I think there are a number of other uses.
No.
So we get it. So we find out. So we've asked.
But would you want to put it under infrastructure or land use, or where would that go then?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
What would you
I mean,
think?
we've got-
Ken, what do you think?
We've got that separate question on mobility where I think it was under mobility that I had the couple questions on the bikeway, the greenway, the bike path. Could we add something in there maybe? So it's, I mean, it could be recreation rather than mobility as the title, or whatever I had as a title there.
I think you could put it under either infrastructure or land use.
Yeah.
I just wonder if those are the questions we want.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to go back to the group and ask.
And we're
Right.
not going back for a couple weeks, are
Oh.
we?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, you have a meeting, don't you? Could you use the meeting on your standing meeting on the 4th with the Open Space Committee to ask that question?
It's generally not about recreation.
Okay.
The next meeting of the Open Space and Recreation Plan is June 11th. Well, we're still within our time frame. We could ask them there, I suppose.
Yeah.
I just,
Okay. Well, let's think about it. If we feel like recreation has not been fully addressed, I'm just trying to think of, I'm just trying to imagine people's answers. Like, yes, we need to, I don't know, make better use of Labrie Field or something. I mean, heaven knows there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being invested in Labrie Field, and it's still not totally usable. So I'm just trying to figure out what answers we might get, to imagine that.
so maybe it's this, and this is back to Francine and Ken, because they're both on that committee. Maybe we just don't include any additional recreation questions on this survey. We go back to the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee and we say, what specific questions would you put if we were able to ask a couple of questions?
Right.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I said. We should ask
Yeah.
what they would like to have included. Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's do that.
Ken, do you
All right.
agree?
So we could leave this.
Yeah.
We could leave that as an open-ended thing until you guys meet on the 11th. Then, if that's what you're saying.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, because that still gives us time. That's fine. If they feel strongly that recreation needs to be better understood or represented, and we can deal with it then after you have that meeting. I think would be better for now.
Okay.
Good. Okay. With that said, I think we need to call it quits. We need to just set a date for the next meeting, and I'd kind of like to get us back onto our Monday time frame, if that's okay with everybody. This was a little aberration here. So June 8th would be the possibility, and June 22nd. So that would get us right before our anticipated deadline with select board.
I'll go for the 8th.
Yeah. So the 8th, and maybe we will or we won't need the 22nd, but we'll see. We might still, but at least June 8th. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Everybody in favor? Okay. Good. All right, then I think that's it, unless anybody has anything else to bring up. I appreciate your time and attention. I think we've got a lot to talk through tonight. I feel pretty good about what we've gotten through. We just got to figure out how to get it all implemented now. So thanks for your time. If I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second.
A second.
All right. Everybody say aye.
Just when
We'll do it that way. I'll trust you.
Yeah.
All right, let's adjourn at 9:04. Thank you very much. And we'll end the recording as well. And have a good week, everybody. Appreciate it.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Take care of your cold there, your cough.
Yeah, I'll get some water.